Huh?
I have a couple other things I gotta do.
Oh, but at least you remember to hit record. It only took you like 3 times.
Having to steal your own episodes off the internet. That was funny, and we were live when that happened.
Your human is showing.
Sorry, just sharing this out. Zoom.
I really gotta do it behind the scenes sometime.
Okay, so I'm sorry that took a second, and I will give you a proper introduction. So I'm going to wave at my audio so I know where to cut it. Welcome everybody back to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. Tonight I'm super excited to have the higher density duck with the interdimensional understanding. She has quickly become a fan favorite and a regular guest speaker on the Typical Skeptic podcast with Robert Killell. And I want to take just a moment to thank Rob on a personal level. I've become a member of a community I could never have even imagined and made some amazing new friends like Rock Castaldo, Selena Ingalls, Matt Mornian, Dan Armstrong, and of course, Chris Matthew, the founder of FKN. If it wasn't for Rob, I'd have never met these people. And I've received a lot of help from a lot of other people on my spiritual journey and my awakening. And I want to thank you all. And I want to thank Rob most of all. So if you aren't watching Typical Skeptic and you're not checking out some of the amazing guests that he has, you really should. Which, that being said, I also had the pleasure of being on the New Year's special, the typical skeptic, when Psychic Duck announced her presence to the world. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Hi,
There
I'm
she
back
is.
on track. We made it on November 1st, 2024. I just want to start with a big hug for Don and your special partner.
Thank you so much. So the New Year's special was actually the first time we saw you, and it was the first time I actually got to even interact with you. So this has really come full circle for me because I was honored to even get to ask you a question that night. But what compelled you to make your presence known on the Typical Skeptic New Year's special?
I always say it was a spontaneous act, and I got a lot of encouragement from people that I loved. You're like, go for it, do it. And I put on my gloves. My fingers are inside this glove. I rub my eyes and boom. That's really it. That's really what happened. And I never thought it would go this far. It could have been. It was just an instantaneous thing. It could have been just that night, but people kept asking for me, and I was like, huh. I kind of felt like Cinderella, you know? It's like, oh, people want to know where I went. What happens after midnight? Because I did go after midnight. So that kind of brought me forward. I never thought people would like write to me, and I'm still catching up on emails. Like it's been like um I feel loved, guys. I really feel loved. And the fact that people just want to hear from me and see me and ask for me, I just felt kind of, it did warm my heart. It did make my year, I gotta say. So really thank you for everyone that even wants to hear me and listen to me. And those that book sessions, of course. Thank you for supporting me. I never thought it would get this far. I would say my main message to the world, and I know I just got started, is be yourself and bring all your love however it presents itself to be. And I guess I'm a duck. Bye.
Um, you have a friend in the audience. Selena Ingalls is here, and she says, "Hi, Psychic Doc." So
Hey,
I just,
Selena, hello, hello. I can see the chat, everyone. Yeah, I'm not
oh,
seeing it all, so I'm relying on, your voice and everyone that tells me how it is. So I just want to say welcome to everybody watching the show.
yeah. I asked you here tonight because I thought it was important that everybody knows the story behind the duck, and then we'll get into some questions about, your abilities and other people coming into their own abilities. But first, I'd love to hear the origin of Psychic Duck because it's just a great story.
Oh my god, okay, let me start. Where do I start from there? So I guess I was in a factory and I was boxed in, and this lady decided to take me to Whole Foods. I remember there was a woman, and she did put me in the Whole Foods, and I was placed on some laundry aisle. I was not around other stuffies, so I kind of was lonely sitting in the cold. It was like -10 degrees. It was a really cold day. I was just sitting there, and then there was this Homo sapien that just walked by and stared at me, and we kind of just exchanged glares. Like I'm like, huh, and she was like, huh. And we just got closer and closer, and then again her hands went in the glove, and I just felt so stretched, like and we just stared at each other and then walked away. That's really all that is. And she kind of started, and I would say this Homo sapien is trying to get their life together, do the right thing, go to school, and she just needed my help in some stuff. It was kind of frustrating at first. Like she had to take pictures of me wearing sunglasses, and she did a bit of photography, and then one day she's working with all these kids. I'm like, what's wrong with this person? Like, why am I here? But I guess people kept wanting to see me. People looked forward to me. And I guess I felt wanted, especially after and I feel like other people can relate to this. When, you've been all alone with your thoughts for so long, and then suddenly people are saying hi to you, it feels like, ugh, like get away from me. Who are you? But then slowly it's like, oh, I feel safe. I can keep moving forward one step at a time. And here I am now on this show. Like I still can't believe people want me. Quack, quack. I'm so happy.
Yeah, it is really an honor. Like we watch every episode. You've actually given me some very intriguing and compelling readings on Rob's show. So I
Hmm.
thank you for that. And whenever you're on, we tune in. Like it is just great to have you on though. Um, I just wanted to touch on something because you are actually a very good demonstration of what an awakening is. Like you are receiving your information from a higher source of consciousness, and that's exactly what's happening to a lot of us, right?
Yeah, I would say it has always been there. I think the hardest part is believing, like, can I actually listen to this? Is this real? Especially when it starts. It can mask through our thoughts. It could be a whisper. And a lot of times it comes through when nobody is watching, or sometimes when everybody's watching and it's like alerts you, hey, get out of here, or stay here, or don't go there. And no one really talks about it growing up that you have an inner voice. Like we don't hear parents telling their kids, hey, there's an inner voice inside of you, it will guide you. But as you grow up, you need to learn what voices to keep and what voices not to keep. Like kids don't know how to keep themselves safe, and it's us that tell them how. And a lot of times, again, they just internalize all the wrong things. And I call them wrong things because I see wrong as something that puts you down and minimizes you and shuts you down. It's like being stepped to the ground, like, oh, it's like, when you hear that noise behind the feeling, that's not something to follow. But I would say that I see it like a string even for those that want to connect. Like you can just like rub your heads, or if you notice when you're frustrated, you either rub your chin, rub your heads, and some people that still pick their nose, don't feel ashamed if you still pick your nose, because sometimes when you need other thoughts, you start picking your nose. You're like digging and searching for something. So yeah, like these are different ways to connect to what's inside of us, inside of our hearts. But that's one thing you can do is like, and I literally do this. Like when I feel very alone, and when you feel like you're cornered in, it's like you're in this room and everything is just either blank or dark or light. You're just cornered. It's like, oh, where do I go from here? Just visualize a string coming on top of your head right here and see where that goes. Because suddenly that might take you to a memory, that might take you to another feeling. And there's like, just see it as a way to create an opening. If you choose to be a mad person, you can poke holes in yourself and see where that takes you. Your organs can start talking to you if you want. But for those that just want to connect to their higher source, like just imagine a string. It can be any colors. Be creative with it, I would say.
That that is really good advice. I can actually envision what you're saying. Um, what would you say people should be watching for? Like you were saying, hearing a voice, is it like feelings and emotions and energies that are all kind of our cues that our intuition is coming online? And how do you really develop that, I guess?
I would say the first off is I'm gonna I'm laughing in my head because I'm gonna sound really old. Sometimes you just have to sit with it. And I think that's the hardest part. You're gonna sit with it, and no one likes sitting with it. I still don't like sitting with it. Like, you're gonna sit with it. That's the hardest part. Like, really, really sitting with it. And the reason I'm really emphasizing, because a lot of times people are looking for something to do. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I would say, don't do anything. Sit with it. And if you're really early on in the journey, and we've all been there, including myself, the hardest part is listening to yourself. And that's where sometimes like getting people when they go to therapy or whatever form of therapy, when I say therapy, I'm like anybody that would listen to you unconditionally, without judgment, without telling you change this or that. Because we never had that, and especially when you're healing, like the first step is, can somebody hear me? Is there anybody out there? So find that person out there when you can't do it for yourself. And I would say I'm able to do it now because of all the people that were able to show me that there are actually people in the world that want to hear you. And I think that's the beautiful thing about appearing on podcasts. It's like people want to hear each other. We didn't have that. Like even 10 years ago, that wasn't a thing. It's very healing to just sit down and listen. And the fact that people just want to hear us. You just show up as you are, like, hey, I'm here to listen. So that's really the first step. Sit down and listen to yourself. Listen to all the crap you have. Listen to all the music you listened to 2008. Just hear it all again. Like, how did I hear this on and on for hours? That's your soul speaking. Like for those that especially get this, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm connected to. Look at your playlist. What have you listened to the past 24 hours? Bam, there's gonna be one song you've listened to 3 times, even if it's this like short segment. It could be a guttural heavy metal, like anything like that. Like you're gonna hear your soul in there. Just a lot of it, I would start with just listening, like opening up your ears.
I I I get that. I've been hearing that a lot lately, like just sitting in silence. And that's actually something I do. I drive for a living. So I get the opportunity to either just, I can shut everything out, roll up the windows, turn off the radio, and just be in my own head. And it actually is very freeing and gives me a lot of time to consider the things that I won't understand.
And I would say for those that sometimes silence can be spooky, especially when you grow up in an unpredictable home. Just adding some random soundscapes. It could be I don't know, it could be anything, like any sound of the river or it could be sound of space, even if it's like I don't know, I haven't thought about have you heard of Dead Mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put Dead Mouse too. There's no words. You can just let it like roll and then you just like as you're driving, then the memory might show up. Or you can just put the intention of like show me what I need to know. And or if you're trying to heal certain parts of your body, like your liver, your organs, you can be like, show me what I need to know. And you might get a scene of some sort, like, this is where I need to forgive myself. I'm trying to find a way to link that. I would say forgiveness is really important. And where people get confused about forgiveness, they think of, oh, I should forgive other people or forgive myself for doing wrong. It's actually a way of being accountable and taking responsibility. If you can't forgive yourself, you cannot know what should I do next. You don't know what responsibility is yours, what responsibility is theirs. If you know I forgive myself for doing these things, and then there's other people like I'm not gonna assign that's mine because that was theirs. So okay, this is what I need to do to grow, and this is what they need to do to grow. So for those that
I
feel like I need to forgive to move on, you can look at what's my responsibility, what is theirs. I think that's important too, to let go of the things that are not who we are really, more than it doesn't serve us, but this is not me anymore. I became this version because you showed me that's how I can feel my power. Let that go, folks.
I totally dig what you're saying. And oh, she's on the mushrooms again, folks. You were talking about like getting in touch with other versions of yourself and your inner child. Can we get more into that? Like a lot of people have a hard time doing that inner work and even the inner reflection. And where would you start with that if somebody's just at step one of like getting into the shadow work and getting in touch with themselves?
That's a really good question. Eh, let me feel into it for a second. I'm trying to find an objective ground. It's kind of like a seed. It's like right now you're planting the seed to look through. And I think the hardest part is where it's like you're coming out of your shell. It's like suddenly you have to see the world with new eyes. You're no longer seeing it through their eyes. So a lot of the inner child is learning how to see with your own eyes, not with anybody's eyes. And that does take time. I feel like some people do benefit from books and classes. It's kind of a shortcut. But for those that are just angry, like I consider myself one of them, for those that are just angry and resistant to everything, and especially those that have awakened and they can't trust anyone anymore. I think I went through that a lot. It's like I don't know who to trust. Everybody's out to get me. I don't know why. It's like for those that that are in that space, and I give my love to you because I've been there. For those that's really hard to trust other people. I would say like note whenever you're looking at, notice if you're looking through your eyes. And one of the ways to do that when you can't is start touching things without looking at them. And you'll notice that in your eyes, you'll see the texture. Like let's say you have a soft towel and a hard towel, like a towel that's really old and a towel that's like just not necessarily newly bought, but one you haven't used for a while. And it's a lot softer than others. Touch one without looking at them. You'll notice your eyes will create an image of that towel. It's like, huh, somehow you looked at it without looking at it. You can touch your shirts right now for everyone that's watching. Touch your t-shirt, touch your shirts. Notice without even looking at it. Notice it's like you'll feel an image. It comes through. That's an example of looking through your own eyes and not someone else's. Train yourself with different items around your house, and suddenly you'll start being able to see through your own eyes and not through other people's visions or ideas. And it'll help with decision making, especially those that are like, and I get these questions a lot. Should I quit my job? Should I move this? Should I do that? A lot of times they stay because they have their father's eyes on. Oh, this helps me pay rent. That's the only way I can pay rent. They have their father's eyes, or they have their mother's eyes. Oh, this is the only way I can be good and useful to people. That's their mother's eyes. Yeah, practice just looking around. I would say the five senses really helps us expand. And I would say treat yourself like a 3-year-old exploring the world. They're still looking through their eyes.
I love that you mentioned the five senses, because that's kind of a rabbit hole I've been down lately. Is like I've come up with this understanding that we used to have more than five senses, and those are the clairs, right? So what you're saying is use the five that we still have to develop the ones that we've lost. Well, I think they've been taken away, but
Nice true though. No, I hear you. It's like it's been it's kind of like everything you touch, there's another hand touching it. And you'll find a lot of times people, especially when they're engaging in like any form of self-harm or picking up their skin, they're removing other people's hands of them, removing other people's imprints, other people's frequencies of them. And that's another thing you guys can do is put Epsom salt on your chakra centers or any part of the body that you feel like you need to find ownership of. After a month, you'll notice a difference. It's like something just gets cleansed and pulled away. If you want to get weirder with the five senses, look at the 8 senses, guys. The 8 senses is a lot of fun. It's spooky. It's like there's one called interoception, which is the space inside of your body. An example would be like when you eat a lot of spaghetti and you regret it. That's interoception.
sorry, I'm just writing this down.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Can you go through what the other ones are? Like you're saying that there's
Okay. I'll start with the basics just because my memory is like a goldfish. I'm gonna start with. So we have sight, which is seeing. Our eyes, my eyes are looking at you. And then there is mouth is for tasting. Like it's like gustatory. That's the second one. It's like munching. It's like when you suddenly you're bored and you start tasting your own saliva for no reason. That's you just breaking down the past and trying to break down things that just don't serve you without you realizing. Or it's kind of like you're preparing yourself for the next stage of your day. It could be, oh, I need to eat chocolate for no reason. I'm gonna like chew on my saliva and create some balls inside of myself. And then you just move forward. So there's gustatory. And the second one is hearing. My ears are not, you guys can see my ears. My ears are for hearing. It's like notice your inner voice and outer voice. It's like you're hearing your inner voice, you're hearing your outer voice. A lot of people don't have an inner voice before they awaken. That's how hijacked they have been or taken away. It's like, did you know only 33? I don't believe it. I don't know if it's true. I saw a meme, but then I read that it's actually not a meme, it's a real it's a real like study of whatever. Only 33% of us have an internal voice when they read. Do you actually hear somebody read the text for you, or do you open your mouth and read the text when you're reading? It's like when you guys are looking at memes, do you actually find your mouth opening up and reading it out loud, or do you hear an inner voice? I hear an inner voice. What about you?
I get an inner voice, and sometimes I can actually hear the other person's voice.
Yeah, apparently only 33% of people have that. That kind of scared me. I'm like, really? Only 33% of people on this planet have that? Oh, that's kind of spooky. But yeah, I do have it.
I get what you're talking about. It's weird because this is another side subject, but I have a big problem with the whole humans only use 10% of their brain thing, because there's no mammal on the planet that only uses 10% of something that it was born with, right? I think we might have been dialed back to 10%, but I think we have a lot more capability than what we know.
Again, this is my own understanding. I feel like the 10%, it's mostly whatever comes in what's this place called in our foreheads? Prefrontal cortex? Yeah, I think that's just what it is. But a lot of communication is nonverbal, It's like not spoken, Speaking is more of this dimension. Like other dimensions, you don't really need to use your mouth or to move. Things just move. It's not necessarily like as solid as it is right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm like going on a rainbow train. And let's go back to the senses because I can see myself like, ooh.
Yeah. Oh, she's going back on the mushrooms.
I need to get my memories back. Sorry, guys. Okay. I am back.
Canadian Spinja actually makes crocheted mushrooms if you would like one.
Ooh. Oh,
I make sure that one gets sent to you.
I love you, I love you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Spinja. Oh my God, I'm over the moon.
She's over the moon.
I love you, Spinja. Okay, let's go back. So I said sight, I said gustatory, which is like munching and munching with our mouth. I said hearing. And then we have tactile, which is touch. This is what I just mentioned, the tactile sensation. Like, when you feel something and your eyes are not looking. It's like, okay, I'm feeling it. And also notice why you don't tolerate. Because sometimes our bodies don't tolerate paint, but can tolerate chalk. And for some people, they cannot tolerate chalk, but then they can tolerate paint. Notice some people can tolerate chalk in the morning and now in the evening. It's like the body will scream at you if you touch chalk, but the body won't scream if you touch chalk in the morning. I feel like in the older, I was gonna say 90s and early 2000s is the old days. Oh my God, what has happened to me? I've been indoctrinated with AI. Okay. The old days when they used to use chalk and it was just like another day. Now people don't have that anymore. That's kind of gone. Yeah, it's crazy. There's no more chalk. The sound of chalk.
Yeah. That's very true. That's wild. I never actually looked at it that way, like the things that we no longer. Yeah.
So we have sight, gustatory, we have what else did I mention? Oh my God, sight, gustatory, auditory, hearing, tactile, touch. Like notice, can you tolerate? There are times when people don't do they're not finishing their laundries, not because they're lazy, it's because their hands cannot tolerate touching anything that's wet. It's like I don't want to do that right now. So you can just rub your hands and create some heat and then give yourself 5 minutes, then your hands can tolerate the wet clothes. I would say try that for those that leave things, unattended. It's not because, I know there's all these theories of ADHD and having all these tasks, but a lot of times the body, it's like the antenna needs some scrubbing. It's like you need oil in your car. It's like working with that. So there's tactile, and then there is olfactory. Olfactory is something I've been exploring, especially with psychedelics. I think we could talk about psychedelics here because that's one of the main senses that got lit up for me. Because I do remember I turned into a dog the first time I took it for a while. And ever since I've been smelling things. I can smell a baby's diaper from all the way from online. And that is not a joke. You can smell people. It can smell like organs just releasing things. You can smell somebody's home cooked meal. It's crazy. I did not have that before my awakening. Yeah. Definitely gotta say olfactory is an interesting one. I'm still exploring. So I think we went through 5. Yeah, go for it.
I can actually tell Spinja from the other end of the house when the coffee's ready.
Mm, here you go.
Like-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh,
Ooh.
you got eyes.
There's eyes too. We can be friends in my tummies. Oh, you're so
I will
cool.
send that to you.
Yay. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everybody check it out. There's a mushroom timeline.
The mushroom timeline. I love it. I
it's-
enjoy the mushroom timeline.
I value people that create stuff. It's like sometimes we need little reminders of who we are. And that's why if you look at a child that was neglected and they didn't have stuff growing up, it's hard for them to know who they are because they've never had anything reflect back to them who they are. So you guys, when you create those things, you're helping people remember who they are. It's what's important to them. So yeah, keep creating. You got this. It's an important job. A lot of people don't, give a lot of credit for creators. It's like we need little reminders, especially when life gets hard and, we're caretaking for people where, we go, or maybe we're going through our own illnesses ourselves, or, loss or grief. And, I can look at them as to remember, there's something that saved me someday. That's true. Yeah.
She's actually listening off camera at her spinning wheel right now, so that's kind of neat that you're the creativity.
Yay. I love you, girl. Okay.
I love you, Jack.
Okay, so we went through 5. I'm getting a bit distracted, so everybody. There's so
Yeah.
much left in the room. So I went
Yeah.
through 5. And then there's vestibular. Vestibular is a big word. So vestibular is what helps us find balance. It's like when you see kids, they're all floppy, or like standing on one leg and you just can't stand on one leg. That's the vestibular system. And there's actually a bone in the ear that actually helps us balance ourselves. And I don't understand the whole technical stuff about it. I just found it interesting. But it's kind of like you'll find a baby and they're growing up and learning how to sit up. And a lot of them, you'll find a baby suddenly can notice things being thrown at them when they're sitting up, but when they're laying down, they can't. Some babies notice things when they can laying down than being sat up. That's the vestibular system. It's like it helps them balance. A better way to remember for me, it's like jumping up and down. You'll find people, it's easy to jump. They have the flexibility. A lot of people, they don't have that. They lost touch of their sense. It's nothing to do with weight because there are people that are, heavier body that they can jump and do acrobats and everything. Like they have all their senses intact. It has nothing to do with weight. And I think that's what confuses people. And then you find people that are smaller bodied and they can't jump. They can't spin or they're afraid. They've lost touch of that senses. That's a good example of vestibular. It's jumping. How many did we talk about? I'm bad with math.
Yeah, I think we're on 7.
7. Ooh.
6.
Okay, now I remember. There's 2 more left. There's proprioceptive and interoceptive. Proprioceptive is like feeling the pressure on your body. It's like when I don't know if you ever like children laying on you or like somebody walking on your back and you just somehow you feel more human again for no reason. It's like you didn't want to get out of bed and then somebody just, breaks your neck and then you're up again. You're like, okay, I can get up now. I got beat up or something. I feel okay. That's proprioceptive. It's this deep pressure in your body. It's kind of like your organs need to squeeze somehow. Or if you can get just 2 people, then give you like systematic, like either like deep pressure going downwards or going upwards, or like have something climb on you and it feels weird and ticklish, like, there's a bug climbing on me. That's proprioceptive instinct. And then we have interoceptive, which is kind of the space inside of our bodies after, it's like when you feel cold and hot at the same time, or it's, let me try to find another better example. Kind of like, people that wear jackets in the summer. I'm one of them. I'll just wear a big hoodie. You're like cold and hot at the same time, and people think you're just crazy. I feel like a lot of us that have taken different substances understand that too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like you're cold and hot. It's like you can't take it off, you can't keep it on, and it's just a can of worms. That's my there are other deeper understandings, guys, but these are the senses we can connect to right now that are slowly being released to the world, I would say. And a lot of people don't know it's there and they think there's something wrong with them or they're lazy. And it makes me sad because no, we're not lazy. It's just that we weren't taught to connect with ourselves. Like when you look at kids, you'll find kids putting their feet in their mouth. I don't know how they do it. It's impressive. I don't want to do that in this lifetime right now, put my feet in my mouth. But that's just a good example of somebody that's instinctual. They're like so connected to their instincts, they do weird shit and then it's all gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of us that are depressed are like, what's my purpose? To really to reframe that is where are my instincts? What happened to me? Where did they go?
You really just kind of open something up. You basically have to figure out where you started to lose yourself.
Mm. Yep.
Wow.
Mm.
The duck blew my mind. Oh, there was an owl.
Yeah, that's my friend. I'm trying to bring my friends over to just they're a little shy. I brought them yesterday to the Halloween party. We were just staring by, that's my friend Owl.
Oh, I like your new friend. I'm glad she's on the show. Hi.
She's a bit shy. It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
a lot of us are like trying to find your instincts again. When they're like, I'm trying to find my psychic ability, you're really trying to find your instincts. The good news is it's always there, but a lot of times your instincts just speak louder when you're about to die or when you're in danger. That's the only time we hear them. We don't hear them when, life is going great sometimes. And we're learning how to find your instincts when we're trying to find the good stuff for ourselves, not just for survival. And this is where we connect to the heart space instead of our minds, because our minds are all about survival. The heart is more about, opening up and expanding and noticing what to allow and what to let go of. The mind is more like a sorting system. I'm gonna file this memory, in my father's house. I'm gonna file this memory in my mother's garage, and I'm gonna try to drown this and drink myself and not remember this anymore. We all do that. So the heart, there's no way to do that with the heart. The heart, it's either here and you're feeling it and you're crying and overflowing, or there's like a space for all the good stuff in our life. It's like, this feels good to me, or this hurts. There isn't, oh, this is what happened in my dad's house. Let me like blah 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 blah. Good night. We all do that. The heart doesn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I can completely relate to that. Like you and the audience, there's like 7 people in the chat. There's Aurora Diamond, Selena, and Joanna, and they're all just loving everything you are putting out. This is great information, and a lot of people need to hear this. So again, I want to thank you because this has been wonderful. So I want to go from there. What type of things would you suggest that humans do to help with activation, like food or yoga or meditation, or where would you tell them to start?
Ooh, I feel like I'm gonna have a differing opinion than most people, and I just want to start with there's no wrong way to start. There's really no wrong way to start. If you want to start with emptying out your fridge, empty out your fridge. That's one of the ways I started to. I started emptying out my fridge. I was getting really sick, and I used to drink like 2 liters of Coke and all of that. I had to lose 100 pounds to move forward. So I've been there. It's like, if this is what you can do today, do that. If you can empty out your fridge, if the only healthiest thing you can drink is orange juice, that's a good step. That's one way to move forward. I think the hardest part is not shaming yourself, and I would say as a starting point. Actually, yeah, I'll just use this as a starting point. You have to remove everyone's voices in your head, because a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I've done this before. This hasn't worked." And a lot of times the person that told you hasn't worked was your mom, was your dad, was the neighbor, was somebody in school. It was never really you. It was somebody's observation of you. It's like, oh, I tried this healing, and then, because somebody still saw you as something smaller than you thought you could be. So notice that, I would say. So whatever feels right. So if the body is screaming for you, how do we know when the body is screaming? You somehow get a diagnosis. Oh, you have cancer, or you somehow start having like, broken bones out of nowhere. It's like, when did I break my arm? I don't remember this. Like, if you have those moments, guys, you start there, I would say. The second place to start is when you notice no one likes you. It's like, why doesn't anyone like me? And I'm not saying that as if you're a problem. No, it could be you're in the wrong place. You're around the wrong people. You're trying to force yourself to be somebody else. And no one's gonna see if you're trying to be somebody else, you know? Especially sometimes we put ourselves with places and just because, oh, this is the only place I can survive and we're surrounded by our step parents. We don't realize everyone we're working with are like our stepfather or our stepmother. It's like you're kind of put, it's so strange. We put ourselves in situations to survive it. And when we notice that, you stop playing the whole game. It's like, I don't need to prove to my stepmom and my stepdad that I'm whole and worthy. So I no longer will be attracting those people in my life. So I would say, yeah, that's the second step is notice, you know, if it's not a health crisis, notice if people like you or don't like you. Or do you like them? Do you feel close to them? Because I've had people tell me that I'm their best friend and they're not my best friend. It was just, I was their dump bag. They just dumped everything on me. I was just this person that needed to make sure that I was worthy of being alive. So I just did stuff for people. I'm not gonna hide that. So I've been there myself. I would say noticing those small sentiments can really make a massive difference in your life because here's the next stage or the hardest stage, loneliness. A lot of times when we start healing, we become extremely lonely. And I don't think many people talk about that. And loneliness can kill you. And when I say kill, you can either go back to old habits they haven't been to. You'll find people that were sober stop being sober again out of loneliness. Or you'll find people start talking to all the wrong people, people that will lie to you, tell you they'll help you, and they'll pretend to be family. So really notice that. Loneliness is a killer, I would say, guys. Notice when you're lonely. And once you're in a place where you feel like you've developed your own roots, then you can start exploring. And sometimes for people, yoga is the one that brings inner peace. Or yeah, notice whatever brings you inner peace. There are people that's yoga, for people that's Tai Chi, for people that's Qigong, for people that's swimming too. For me, I was just sitting by the lake, everybody. I sat by the lake with champagne, not a good idea. But yeah, like that was one of my first moments of just noticing that I'm allowed to have peace in my life, which was going on a hike. Whenever I wanted to, that was like, yay, no one had to talk me down. Why are you hiking? Why aren't you working? Why aren't you doing this? Why are you a piece of shit? Why are you inconsiderate? It's like, no, I just wanted to go on a hike. So that's what I mean by fleshing everybody's voice. It's like it doesn't matter. It won't make sense to everyone. Sometimes it won't make sense to you, but just having those small steps. You know, 3-year-old will wake up and they want to watch like all this weird cartoon. You know, we don't judge them. As a parent, you're gonna look and like, okay, whatever. As long as they're not, you know, bothering me, that's fine. We lose track of that. We don't have that spontaneity anymore where we just want to watch something for the sake of watching it. A lot of us just even watching rap shows reclaiming that. I want to watch whatever I want to watch, not what other people think I should be watching. I would start there. I feel like many people talk about this grand, like, hey, I have this technology and blow this thing and twist your neck. And then you have this frequency, like, ooh, and then you start floating. And then 6 months later, it's like, pay me again. And we'll do this all over again. Like, start with the little steps. And then adventure will find you. And it sounds strange, but for a lot of it, for me, it was making myself available to something more, even when I had no idea what that was. And somehow people just found me, and this is no joke. People found me, and they're like, "Hey, do you want this?" And just all these conversations will happen. But I would say most of all, just having somebody that will hear you without judgment. I think that's really important, and that's really when you can see yourself, because a person can tell you're wrong without making you feel bad for being wrong. And I have them thousands of times, and we need those people in our life. Like, hey, you know, you deserve more. Your heart deserves better. Or you're limiting yourself, or you're not seeing things for who they are, or you're looking in the wrong direction, or sometimes you're looking like your mother. It's like, I don't want to be like her. No, we need those people in our life. I would say that's the hardest part is surrounding yourself with people that will hear you without telling you what to do or feeling triggered and trying to show you a different form of power that's nothing to do with what is powerful for you. I would say reclaiming your power is the hardest part, which is understanding and being able to differentiate what is myself and what is everything everyone told me as myself. And it's still hard sometimes. Like I was told I was slow, I was told I was this, I was that, and you know, still family members don't understand how I've become what I've become. It's like, you know, there's people will still remember you on the version they had power over you. And here's the thing, I've come to a place I'm like, you know what? I want to honor that person that was slow. I'll be there for other slow people. Like and me from my heart space, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. It's like if somebody is slow, they're slow. I'm still slow in other ways too. Like it's actually evil to make fun of people, actually. It tells me who they were that they make fun of me. You'll find pieces like that.
that actually resonates a lot because that's actually why I do this show is like I was told I was slow. I dropped out in grade 10 and all of a sudden I understand a lot of things about the universe that my smarter friends have no idea what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
it's just this weird expansive understanding that I've kind of fell into and I was like I need to do this show and I need to talk to some of the most well-informed people I possibly can, and it has just turned into a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm glad that you can be a part of it too, because like you are just pearls of wisdom all night tonight. I can't thank you enough. I know I'm gonna thank you again. Um,
Hmm.
Something you alluded to was about your energy attracting. Do you think that our emotional energy and our emotional frequency attracts and basically creates our reality and draws things towards us?
I will, there's different schools of thought, and I'm very sensitive on this topic, especially when I remember when I tried to get some help and I was around all the wrong people. And I remember some lady told me my chakras were black and I was attracting those things, and only her could bring my colors back. I've heard a lot of crazy things. So I'm very sensitive to this, like your energy attracts all these people. I would say where we shine compassion to ourselves will take us to the next stage of our journey. Because if I'm still beating myself up, a lot of times we don't notice when we're fighting wars. We're still like on the timeline in which, oh, I'm gonna fight the next war, so I'm with the next person. It has nothing to do with, it's like, yes, my understanding is limited. I'm still trying to prove to the world I'm a good person by trying to please a victimizer. You know, that does happen to us. But I think the hardest part is it's more of our energy is not really seen by us. Because once we see ourselves, we'll no longer tolerate the things that we're tolerating. So we attract things that we're willing to tolerate. I think that's a better way to look at it. It's not our energy, it's more like what are you willing to tolerate? And I would say I grew up, it's like, I'm actually going to share this because a lot of people grow up with the opposite gender being abused. I watched my father get abused a lot. And he grew up with, oh, I need to do more and please and sacrifice. And it killed him in the end. So a lot of us are very lucky that we don't die from that because I saw my father go through that. So it's really about, what do I tolerate? What do I not tolerate? Because a lot of the heartbreak that I had was trying to understand and make people feel better. And I realized that's not my responsibility. I need to put myself first because once I make myself feel better, then I'm able to make others feel better. It took me like many, many like years to really believe that. But for those that find themselves repeating situations, it does not mean anything about you. It just tells me everything you've been through is playing out again. So again, that's what brings us back to finding the person that really hear us and notice us and allow us to have our desires, and ask why. Like a lot of people be like, tell us do this or do that or play the blame game. It's like, we're all on this planet to grow and learn and meet ourselves again. Yeah, it gets really complicated.
I understand what you're saying, and I love the way you reframe that because that is a nicer way of looking at it. And I do believe you draw in what you can tolerate. Yeah, I get that. Do you have any particular meditation practices or mind training or anything that you would say is a good beginning point?
Ooh, I love this topic. It has changed over the years. I feel like kind of embarrassed by I'm a duck, so I can say whatever I want now. See, I still have sentiments where I feel embarrassed. There was a time when I just had to listen to fire in the bath and have no idea why. The water would get even cold, and I would just sit there listening to somebody's live stream of a camping fire. And that was just it for a bit. And then I transitioned to listening to ice. And there's this woman in Sweden who just records the sound of ice, and it's so mystical. So I would say just tuning into your surroundings, that could be a first step. And there's different forms of meditations for different reasons, but just to connect with yourself, I would say you can start tuning into your surroundings, or even some people like hearing the treadmill. I've actually heard that from somebody recently. Just like hearing the sound of the treadmill. They don't know why. It's very soothing. It's like shing. Yeah, I'm now playing the sound in my head. It's like, yeah. For some
Yeah.
people, it's a satsang, or the sound of bells, or the sound of textures. You go on Spotify and listen to textures, and you just feel kind of, it just takes you on for the day. Whatever feels right, really. Um, Other meditations, I would say, it's kind of, I've seen people really love inner child. I would say for those whose love language is words of action, or what do they call them? I don't know. I'm bad at the love language stuff. But I know there's a human term for it. It's like people that love hearing other people tell them good things about themselves. I feel like that type of meditation does help, just kind of like a remembrance, especially when you feel like everything what happened to you was wrong and you never had that inner parent to give you all that love. So these meditations can help with that. Give you remembrance of this is who you are. You're all encompassing of love and greatness and nature, and you are, and you're just not tapped into it yet. And sometimes we cannot tap into something we don't know exists. It's like a person that doesn't know airplanes exist and they never travel because their parents never told them until one day somebody tells them in school, hey, I went to this country. And you're like, what? Actually, that happened to me. I had no idea you could fly until someone told me you could fly. And I was like, what? You can fly? I remember I was a kid and it's weird. That came up again. I'm like, you can just go somewhere? I'm like, yeah, I went somewhere in the summer. I was like, I don't know, it just stayed with me. I would look at planes and try to notice them in the sky. I'm like, is there a plane coming? A lot of times we don't know what's inside of us until we hear it. So if you guys just, nothing is going right that day and you just go on YouTube and I used to do this a lot. I'll just type in different languages to see what happens. You can just go on Google Translate, type meditation in Chinese. You'll get some different stuff, different than when you type meditation in English, and just play around, see what happens.
I dig it. I like that. So with your awakening, I just want to ask, do you think that it's pretty commonplace for like a life-changing event to basically start people's awakenings?
I remember talking to an elder and I remember asking those questions because a lot of my heartbreak is there are people that I love in my life that are just destroying themselves. And they also make me tremble. Like my mom, she makes me tremble. I cannot be next to her. But there's still love for her and I wish she could change. She could grow. She could just see what I saw, experience what I experienced. And she is very awakened, but she's really scared. I'm just being honest. So,
Yeah.
there are people like that. Like, what changes them? What shakes them? And I remember talking to this elder, and he said, these are the things that, change people. One is you can say, I'm going to be mincing his words, so bear with me, guys. So I would say one is, yeah, like unexpected life events, like illnesses or caring for other illnesses, or caring for your own illness. That's one that really shakes people into looking at themselves in the mirror. I would say two would be parenthood. Two is parenthood. It's like when suddenly you have a child and you have this being and you have to care for it. It brings out the best in you and the worst in you too. So, you're gonna meet the worst version of yourself. You have to choose which one do you want to grow. Do you want to grow that best version possibility or the worst version? Because that's a really hard one. A lot of people feel guilty that they chose to grow the worst version of themselves. And that does happen, especially when you're all alone trying to figure this out or you're with people that just don't hear you. The third one is near-death experiences. It's like, like you almost died or you just disappeared. You have no idea where you've gone. Stuff like that. Yeah, so I think there's four now that I think about it. There's like spiritual awakening. It just happens to people. I've met people you would not believe, like, how did this person's crown open? I really believe we have contracts for that. I'm not sure how that works. I feel like I had one myself too. That doesn't make sense. I'm still trying to figure that out. But a lot of us do have contracts where a crown opens up again. But just me personally working with kids' crowns are super open until the age of 5. They remember everything. Everything just makes sense to them somehow.
Spinja was laughing when you were saying NDEs because if you want to go officially, I've had the 8 that I would count, and I've had about 12 to 15. I took her on one. We almost died in the middle of the lake. 2, actually.
Ooh.
But yeah, I had that type of luck for a while. I don't know what else to call it, but I was very, very, very risky with my own life. And yeah, so it's just interesting that you said NDEs, and it's like, yeah, I've had a bunch of those, and that's probably what started all of this. Well,
Wow.
I actually know what started mine was a series of weird nightmares about being in a super soldier program, but that's a whole other show.
No,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's like you have the energy and I think people don't understand, like we're guardians of different aspects of life, and it looks like you're guardian of healing and cleansing of power. It's like you have
Yeah.
to learn and heal your own power. You have to cleanse it, and you can show people how to cleanse their own power too, because you shouldn't diminish your power. And I'm sure you've seen people, it's like they've used their power in ways, they shouldn't have, they feel bad for using, or they shouldn't have used it that way, and then they just shut it down. They kind of, and they look frail too. You'll notice their spine is like rounding, and they can't really look up anymore. You're one of the lucky ones that can still be in your power. Don't take this lightly. We need people that know how to use that energy and work with it. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I get what you're getting at.
Hmm.
Shoot, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. When did you start to feel that your abilities were coming online? And I guess you and your source of information.
Ooh, actually I'll just say, somebody actually told me. I was just with a group of girls who were going out, and I was actually making fun of it. I won't lie. There was the psychic, and she was looking at a crystal ball, and I was making fun of all of that. And I was not in my right mind, just for the sake of the show, to say that was not in my mind. And I was just
Yeah.
making fun of it, like, what am I doing here? What is this? What is that? And then I remember she held my hand and she asked me, "Who are you?" Because I was seeing everything she was seeing in the crystal. I had no idea people were not seeing what I was seeing. So
Oof.
people around me were not seeing inside, and that's when she told me, "You're psychic, you're this." And I think deep in my heart, I was looking for for a surrogate mom. I was going through that. Now that I look back, I wanted a surrogate mom and somebody that saw me and just wanted to, because she offered that I can just sit with her and watch her do readings, and that did change my life. She saved my life in so many ways. She gave me a job too, and she really did help me out. So there was a person that saw me with all of that. I think I wouldn't be where I am if she didn't see me. I still give her my grace.
That's awesome.
And that's when I learned about frequency, because I didn't know. Like, she had an interesting way of letting me learn and understand, because she wouldn't talk to me. I was just allowed to watch. And then I would just give her my understanding, and she would either give me a look that I'm stupid or I did a great job. That was it. She was an interesting person. And then one day I just figured it out. I don't know how it happened. And I would say with medicines, and that was just me searching on my own. And I remember I understood why. Because when I look in the crystal ball, I cannot see anything in it. But when she's in front of me, I could. So that's when I learned that I had to change my frequency to match a higher frequency in order to see. And I remember when I said that, that was the only time she responded to me with words. She's like, "You understood it. Yes, it's a frequency." And I was like, "Ooh." You have to charge your frequency. So if you find yourself charging your frequency in the sun, do more of that. If you find yourself charging your frequency sitting by a lake, that was for me at that time, do that. Some people charge their frequency by making good food, like Whole Foods, making food for their family. They charge their frequency. That's a way too. Whatever you feel like you're connected to. Some people connect to things by giving. So if you feel like you do better, like, it could even be like a delivery service. You're delivering goods to people and you feel good about it. Do more of that. Whatever feels true. It's so strange how the world works.
I love that, because I think that's very true, that we all have to find the things that we enjoy to make ourselves happy, to elevate our own existences. No, I absolutely love that. We are coming up on an hour, Miss Duck, and I don't want to keep you too long, but where can people get a hold of you for a wonderful psychic reading on their own? And did you get your channel on YouTube yet, or is that still yet to come?
My channel does exist, but I still haven't made any videos, guys, so please bear with me. My channel is Psychic Duck 5D, and you can find it on YouTube. But if you guys want to talk to me directly, it's psychicduck5d@gmail.com. So everything's through email right now. And I'm still catching up on emails for those that are watching the show, and I apologize. There are a few emails I'm still catching up on. But yeah, psychicduck5d@gmail.com is the fastest way to hook up to me.
Yeah. And of course, you are a regular on The Wonderful Typical Skeptic. Rob Hill is the man. Like I said off the top of the show, I wouldn't be here without him. I wouldn't be on this deep dive and podcast journey. Oh, Spinge just handed me a note. Do you have a next date with Rob?
No, I need to respond to that email. I just got it today too.
Oh, geez. Well, you and Spinja must be on the same wavelength or something because yeah. No, and because Rob has some amazing readers. Have you ever thought about doing tarot? I just wanted to.
I don't know why I struggle with it. I do have some oracle card. I can't say the word oracle cards, but it distracts my stream of thought. I believe I could dive in depth. I would have a more in-depth reading with tarot or oracle, but I think it's just me. It's really hard to focus with because I'm literally trying to hear and see. Like when somebody asks me a question, I try to see if a tape shows up. Sometimes it's a visual tape, sometimes a hearing tape. Sometimes it's in my tummy, just a feeling, or I hear a voice. So I'm trying to connect to that. So, but it will definitely be stronger if I'm using tarot, guys. I wish I could, but I find it fascinating that there's all these archetypes and they have been around for thousands of years and people still live by them. Like people exist as them and they don't realize that. So I definitely vouch for using tarot. I think when one day, like 20 years later, I'll become like an octopus and I'll have one hand for tarot and another hand to hear. Huh, I can see myself go through that.
I think that'd be cool. But so I want to say again, thank you so much for coming on. You have just given us like 55 minutes of, well, I think it was 57 minutes of just pure knowledge. Like the audience was absolutely loving everything you had to say. I'm gonna have to rewatch the episode because you just blew my mind on so many. Like I wrote a whole page of notes while we were talking.
You're a fast writer.
I would absolutely love to have you back on again when I come up with more questions and get my head around a lot of what you've taught me tonight. If you would like to come back on at another point.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
And I and there she goes again. I want to thank
later. Just kidding.
20 minutes later. I want to thank everybody in the chat and of course Psychic Duck and of course the man Rob Kalel, because nobody works harder on this podcast game than that man. And like I always say, thank you for watching. And if you can go outside because it's a lot nicer than being in front of a screen. Love you guys.